Griffin style wicking tanks. They've been around for a while. This one here, the wicking style, is a little bit older than the Griffin deck. The Griffin actually had a slightly more advanced deck to it, even though this tank is newer than the Griffin. What we're going to take a look at today now is the Bellus RTA by UD. This thing produces some pretty good flavor, actually very good flavor. It produces some pretty good clouds. The coiling on the deck is pretty damn easy to do. The bear on this thing is the wicking. That's the rub. That's the bear. That's the one thing that you have to tame on this tank. If you don't tame it, you're not going to like what happens. All right, let's head on back down to the build deck, and we'll take a look at this thing, and we'll discuss this thing in depth, and we'll see what exactly you got to do with this thing in order to tame the beast, shall we say. All right? And then we'll come back up and we'll discuss this a little bit more. All right? See you down below, decks. Okay, here we are down on the build deck. We're going to be taking a look at this today, the UD Bellus. I know this tank has been out for a good long while now, but it's still a pretty good tank, and I'm going to take a look at it and see how it measures up in a minute or two here. Let's first take a look and see what we got on the outside. Oh, gee, you can see my camera there. Okay. All right, we're going to take a look at this. It comes in a standard plastic clamshell that just about every self-respecting tank comes in these days. On the right-hand side and on the left-hand side, it has Bellus. On the top side here, it has the scratch and check authenticity code along with a QR code, so you can just scan it with your phone and go there without having to go crazy on it. And on this side, it's got the UPC code, and on the back, it has the only thing that this tank can turn around and claim as being a user's manual. Yeah. Not really a great user's manual. Yeah. Well, let's take a look and see what we got inside for a tank. Open this up like so. And we'll take the tank out, and if I can get it out of here, yeah, there we go. And I'm going to stick that over here into one side. And in here you'll find that you have an extra glass along with a nice big wad of cotton, so you can get yourself up and running here. I'm going to just roll this back up here and stick this back in here like so we don't lose it. And in here you have your standard goodie bag along with a slot plug that you can use for closing off one of the sides of the tank if you want to play team single coil. It has a couple of pre-wound Canthal coils in here. That big orange thing, red thing, excuse me, that you see in there, that is the stopper for the top cap. I'll show you what that is in a minute or two. Plus also you get your other O-rings in here, plus you also get an extra silicone gasket for the 510 pin. So all in all, that's actually a pretty complete spares bag. So let's close this up, move that to one side. Oh, by the way, there's nothing else underneath of here. Absolutely nothing. All right, so now let's take a look at this thing from the top on down. Here at the top you have a removable 510 drip tip. What am I saying? It has the rifling in here that gives the vape, or so UD claims, a twist. And it actually seems to work pretty good. It does turn around. It has nice, even, smooth airflow. This is not a double O-ring. This is actually one O-ring that has two hills and a valley in between of it that just fits on here. And this is a Delrin that's on the outside here for your lips, so you don't wind up getting burnt from it, as it can happen if you have a hot enough coil in here. Now, up here at the top, you have your fill port. Cap screws off like so. And in the top, you have that red rubber silicone gasket that I was showing you in the spare parts. That seals down on your two juice fill ports here. As you'll notice, they're not your standard juice fill ports. They're actually very small little holes. And when I say small little, I don't mean teeny tiny small, but small enough that they just barely have, they're just barely large enough to support some glass pipettes from glass 30 ml dripper bottles. If you want to get a consistently good fill off of this thing, I highly suggest that you use plastic, the plastic juice bottles that have the squirt nozzles on them. They'll fit in here with no problems. I have like two bottles that have the pipettes in it that fit in here, and the rest of the ones that I have don't even think about it. All right, so on the bottom here you have a fully adjustable 510 pin, gold plated. It does not stick out that far, so I would not use this on a hybrid mod. On the bottom you say here, designed and manufactured by UD Tech, along with the UD logo. And this just comes off like so to reveal the bottom build deck. Now, this build deck kind of fits in here, like it's kind of sort of like an aromizer, like the Plus does. It has these two pips here on either side, 180 degrees out, that fit into a notch here, which actually orients it toward the airflows here, which are here and here. Now, you would think by looking at this that these airflows are really humongous. They're not. I'll take the ring off there. As you can see, you got all those nice little holes on there. The airflow is actually a rather small hole that's in the side of the tank. It has these big, humongous openings here, but it's not very big, which actually is very good for this tank, because this tank doesn't supply all that much. It's really kind of a slightly restricted direct lung, slightly airy mouth to lung. This is your build deck down here. Just want to take that and put that to one side for a minute and take a look at it some more. Now, if you take a look down here inside, you'll notice that this atomization chamber is really very nicely domed. It's very highly polished, which gives it a really nice even surface for the juice vapors to actually condense on their way up here to this chimney. And with this rifling in here, I'm not convinced that the rifling actually works, but it is a nice smooth airflow. It's not swooshy by any means, but it's also not noisy and turbulent. So it's kind of sort of like right smack in the middle, but it's enough that it's actually a pleasant vape. This is where your juice comes in here from down here on the sides. You can see my tool is just sticking right in there like so. You have one on either side here that turns around and allows the juice to come down and actually come in here to this point. Let's take a look at the build deck. All right, this is your build deck. It is very, very reminiscent of a Griffin in that your coils are sitting here. The cotton comes off of them and hangs down here into these dedicated juice notches here. I'm not even going to call them juice wells, because they're not really wells. They're just notches cut into the side of the tank. The difference between this and the Griffin is that this is a two-post shared deck. This is not a velocity deck. It's a shared deck. Now, if you look right here, you'll see this big hole that's here, that's drilled into the deck here. That is so that way when you want to go team single coil, you can take that little plug that I showed you in there and replace this coil here with that plug, and that plug sits right into this hole and comes down here and fills up these two juice channels here, leaving you with just the one coil in here. Now I'm not going to recoil this, I'm just going to use this. This is 2 microcoils. I believe they're like 10 wraps each of 26 gauge around a 2.5 millimeter inside diameter coil master jig. So I'm just going to put them in here like that. We're just going to re-wick these things, because you just really, this is a standard coiling, make your standard microcoil type of thing, and just put them in here. And you just have to be careful to make sure that you don't cut the leads from the other side of the coil. That's the only gotcha that this deck really has. So I'm not even going to bother to do the coiling. What we're going to do next is we're going to do the wicking, because the wicking on this thing is the most important thing. So bear with me a minute, I'll be right back. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to just take a standard Muji pad, and we're going to take about, I'd say about, just about a centimeter, maybe 12 millimeters here. And we're just going to snip it off here like so, because the inside of the pad is only about, I'd say about 70% of this pad. When you take off these hard outer skins, you lose about 30% of the actual cotton volume on these pads. So you want about 12 millimeters of width on the pad. So when you take these off, you just pull them off like so. Now, on these type of coils, with these small coils, these 2.5 millimeter coils, you really do need to do this little trick that I always do with my coils, with my cotton, and that's cut this little notch that's on here, because if you don't cut this notch, it just makes life so much harder. Now let me just get my meter here. Just going to move this out of the way here, and we're just going to pop this deck onto the meter here. And let's see what we got here. 1.52. Say what? No. Definitely not. Aha, that's why. One of the screws is loose. That's why. Not making, oops, wrong screwdriver. Duh. Here we go. Yeah, make sure that's down tight. There we go. 6.657. Yeah, that's more like it. I haven't turned around and built anything 1 point something or other in over a year. I knew that had to be wrong. No way. Okay, so we're going to twist and pinch the cotton, and we're going to slip it in here. Now, you want to make sure that this cotton is snug. You see how that coil is just starting to move there? That's what you want to see. Okay? If you don't see that cotton starting to move, you don't have enough cotton in there. You're going to wind up with spit back, because what happens is when the coil gets hot, the metal expands. And when that expands, it expands a lot faster than the cotton itself does, even though the cotton is all juiced up. And what happens is you wind up with a film of juice between the coil, the inside of the coil, and the outside of the cotton. And that's where you wind up getting your spit back from. So you want to turn around. You want that thing to be snug. So that way when you tug on it, it's just starting to move the coil. You don't want it to move it too much, but you do want it to start moving that coil. If you don't do it like that, you are going to be in for a world of Spitback City, and you're going to have issues. So yeah, you want to make sure it's nice and tight in there, and you want to feed that in like so, and you want to twist this in like so, and that just feeds it right in there nice and easy, and then you bring it back and forth like so. And you're good. Okay, now I'm going to take the bigger pair of scissors here. Now what you want to do is you want to bring these coils back like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to be actually cutting it using this landmark here. Okay? This landmark right here. You're going to just put your scissors right here against the deck itself, flop those coils over, and then you're just going to whack away like so. And do the same thing for this side. Right over here like so. Snip. And get those out of the way. Let's get all this excess cotton here out of the way so we can actually work. Now, next thing you're going to do is you're going to fluff up the ends of these cottons here, okay? Because you want to get all those fibers all nice and loosey-goosey. Because when you cut these things, what happened is you wound up getting a line of compressed fibers here. So we're going to, here, perfect example. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there you go. There's your lines. So you want to loosen these things up, fluff these things out so that way you have a nice fluffy cotton. You don't have to thin it out. You just want to fluff it up so that way you have a nice fluffy cotton. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these things and we're going to arrange the cotton so that way they kind of like sticking up middle like that, you know, vertically so. Because what you're going to do now is, you see how this looks here? How you got this little rooster tail sticking up? You're going to take your scissors and you're just going to come in here and you're going to, at a 45-degree angle, you're going to cut that rooster tail right off. Just like so. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing for each one of these three. I'm going to fluff that up, and then you're going to come in here and you're going to take this and make your rooster tail, and then you're just going to come in here at a 45-degree angle like so, and you're going to cut off that rooster tail. Same thing for this side over here. Put that there. Move that to one side. Alright, so we're going to take this thing here and we're going to snip this rooster tail at a 45-degree angle like so. Okay, oops, sorry. I keep forgetting to keep it on camera. Duh. Alright, so now we're going to separate these things here. Alright, let me get my juice. Juice. Okay. I'm going to be using today is some of this Adore E-Liquid Strawberry Submission DIY Concentrate. Basically, I went to the Adore website and I got their DIY concentrate and did it myself. The concentrate is a 15% concentrate. 15% of the total amount of the juice that you make will be the concentrate itself. Now, I'm used 15 because it's so much easier to use 15 than it is to use the 14 that Adore suggests on her bottle. Yeah, I'm lazy. And now we're going to just take this and we're just going to take this and just put this like so in here. Oh, let me keep that on camera. Duh. Sorry about that. And we're just going to take these and we're just going to have these wicks trail down these holes like so. So way like that. And we're going to have this coming down like so. And I think that needs a little more juice on there. And just put a little more juice on there like so. And we're going to take this and we're going to plaster that into the hole like so. So it just sticks into that little hole, and it's just a little bit of that wick is showing down into there. And this one's going to need a little more juice as well, so just give that one more dollop there. Good stuff. And we're just going to take this and we're just going to put that in like so. And don't be afraid to get your paws dirty. Put that in there like that. Okay. And that's basically your wicking. So now what you're going to do is you're going to notice where that little notch is here. See a notch right there? There you got the juice dollop right smack in the middle. But there's one notch here, and here's your other notch here on this side. So we're going to take this notch here. Don't need all that cotton there. I'm going to take this notch and we're going to just push this down ever so gently right over that and into place. And as you can see, the ohm reading has not changed in the slightest, so therefore we know we've got ourselves a good coil job there. So I'm just going to take this and we're just going to unscrew this now. And before we do anything else, we're just going to make sure that that's well seated. Okay, well seated. Now you're going to notice something here. You're going to see this little round ring here. That is going to match up with that little dot that's there. And when that matches up, when you slip this on like so, over these O-rings, and you get it to that point there where you have the dot and that circle lined up, then you know that you have the airflow here fully wide open on both sides, and that grill is lined up so that way you'll have the maximum amount of airflow. Now I'm going to take the bottom ring and we're just going to scoot that on there and take that. I'm going to take a 10 milliliter syringe here, and I'm going to carefully take this dropper out of the bottle here, and we're going to take out 10 milliliters of juice. Now, this is an 80-20, okay? I do not, with this wicking that's here for this tank, I don't suggest that you use anything less than 70-30. Seriously. If you use anything 60-40, 50-50, you're going to be in deep trouble. Because this wicking, no matter how close to spot on that you get it, it is not going to take it. Now, as you can see here, this is what I'm showing you here. You see how my dropper just barely, the tip just barely fits in there. And what happens is you get a little bit of juice like you see here on the pipette. When you get that into there and it's not even fitting into the hole, it's just barely making contact. When you start to go and squish that juice in, the juice is going to flow down this pipette, and you're going to get more juice down this the vapor hole than you're going to get any other place. So this is how I suggest you use a syringe or a syringe top bottle, so you can stick this in here like so and just squish it in like this and fill this up, and that's pretty much it. And we have here 4.2, 4.4, 4.6 out of 10. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3.2 milliliters of juice in here. Okay, so I'm just going to put this back into the bottle so we don't waste not, want not. Get that out of the way. Put that over there. I'm going to put this on top like so. And now with this tank, you do not want to just take this cap and put it down there and tighten down on it. No. What's going to happen if you do that, this air here that's trapped up here is going to wind up being pressurized, and it's going to force juice down and in those wicks. So what you want to do is you want to get this to the point where you just feel the rubber starting to come in contact, and you flip this thing over so that way all your juice is now running to the bottom here, and then you tighten this down. This way what happens is that airflow that's in there is not forcing juice into your wicks, it's forcing air in there. And then you pop this over and you see, got all that nice air bubbles coming up there. That is going to form your vacuum. And that is what's going to make sure that this thing doesn't flood on you also. Okay, so what we're going to do is now I'm just going to leave this here for a second, and we're going to cut back upstairs to the topside deck, and then we're going to vape it, and we're going to talk about it, and let you guys get the heck out of Dodge. All right? Meet you topside. Okay, here we are again topside, and we're taking a look at the Bellus tank by UD today. Thoughts and observations on this tank. This tank is a good tank if your wicking skills are up to par. The coiling on this tank is pretty easy to do. After all, it is basically just a shared two-post deck that is very easy to do. The only gotcha that this thing has is that when you're clipping off the excess leads when putting the coils in, is that you just don't snip one of your coil leads where you're not supposed to snip it. Okay. That's it. It's a pretty standard two-post deck. The wicking, on the other hand, that's the bear. That is the bear that if you don't get it right, it's going to bite you in the tush. The wicking on this tank is of a slightly earlier version of the wicking that's used in the Griffin tank. Now, the Griffin tank is a little bit more, shall we say, advanced in that it uses a ring that fits down over the build deck and screws in place, which holds the wicks in place so they don't move once you've got them in there. This tank does not have that ring. When you go to put your tank onto the build deck, if you don't have those notches already pre-positioned before it actually starts sliding down over the wicking, if you have to twist that in the slightest bit to get those notches lined up, you're going to move those wicks. And if you move those wicks, you're going to wind up getting flooding. Big time flooding. Now, when I first got this tank and I first started to build on it, I looked at this thing and I'm like, oh, I got to put some cotton in here. And I put too much cotton in, and I wound up with dry hit city at least 2 or 3 times. Next couple of times I went in the other end of the spectrum, to the other swing of the opposite swing of the pendulum. And I put too much in there, and this thing flooded all over the place on me. All right? That's how I got the idea that you have to put in certain amount of wicking in here, and you have to do it kind of sort of like a Griffin tank, but with a lot more care. And you have to watch where those notches line up before you even begin to put that tank down onto the deck. If you don't, you're up Schitt's Creek. Okay, plain word here. Okay, this thing produces some good cloudage. Okay, it produces fantastic flavor, and like I said before, I'm using this Doors Strawberry Submission DIY concentrate. I got the bottle from Odor. This is just the flavor concentrate. You mix it up yourself. This is at 80-20, 80 PG 20, 80 VG 20 PG, 3 milligrams of Nic, and I'm using it at 15% concentration. Odor suggests 14% concentration, but it was a little too crazy with the math to turn around and do it at 14%, so I just did it at 15%. It was a lot easier, and besides, that extra 1% really doesn't affect the flavor of it and too much. Okay, back on course. Yeah, if you don't get the wicking right on this thing, you're going to be in for a lot of trouble. Let's take a vape on this. I've got this thing at 45 watts right now. I don't know, you may have heard it, that little bit of gurgling that's in there. That's because in the time between I built it and the time I came back up here, started getting a little bit of excess flooding in here. The wicks haven't fully expanded and fully, dammed off the juice flow channels on the deck. You have to have those little tiny tails sticking down there into the juice channels to take the juice that's coming in from the tank, wick it up to the top, but you have to have the majority of your cotton just at the top of the deck. If you don't have it there to dam off and keep the excess juice from flooding into your deck, you're going to have flood city. Okay? Yeah. the wicking on this thing. That's the rub. The cloudage, as you saw, is excellent on this thing. It's a relatively quiet tank, as some tanks go. The airflow is swooshy. It's a ever so slightly restricted direct lung hit on this thing. You can close this down so you might be able to get a mouth to lung type of vapor off of it. But the couple of times that I got it, I tried doing that. It got more to the point where the juice was getting cooked and it was just nasty. Okay, especially when this thing starts to get a little too juicy just before you start actually getting a flood. And when you start taking a pull on it, you start getting the juice into your mouth. When you get that juice into your mouth and that juice has gotten cooked because you just have too much in there and not enough airflow to turn around and keep the vapor being produced, it gets tasting nasty. So I would highly suggest that if you're going to use this tank, use it as a ever so slightly restrictive direct lung hit. Okay? I'm going to bring this thing up. I'm going to bring this thing up to 50.4 watts. Okay? 0.66 ohms. And we're looking at 5.77 volts. Let's take a vape on this and see how she handles. Now, as you can see, cloud production is excellent. The flavor on this thing is dynamite. I mean, the flavor is fully saturated. There's no problems with the flavor that this thing produces. I mean, this thing produces flavor for days. Your cloud production, if you have it a little too juicy on your wicking, will be exceptionally large. And that's another indicator, along with how much juice you're getting in your mouth, as to whether or not you've got the wicking directly on point with this thing. Let's bring this up a little bit more. I'm going to bring this thing up to about 57.1 watts. That's close enough for government work. I was going to go for 60, but I'm not feeling that generous or adventurous tonight. Let's try this and see how it comes. Now, that vape was just starting to get on the verge of being a little too hot for this child. I like a cool vape. I don't like a hot vape. And that was starting to get onto the verge of being hot. So for my style of vaping, I would say probably about 55 watts. Yeah, I'm going to bring this down to 55. There we go. 55 watts. All right. That's pretty much going to be about the limit for me on this thing. I'm not a high wattage vapor. Never have been. Never will be. I like my clouds. I like my flavor. I don't like the heat. My mouth don't like the heat. There you go. Okay, final thoughts. If you're confident in your wicking skills, if you've played with a Griffin before, then you'll know how to wick this thing. You just have to remember that you don't have the ring to hold the wicks in place as you're putting the tank on. Okay? You have to make sure that those notches are lined up before you even begin to get that tank anywhere near the deck. Okay? So make sure that those wicks stay in place and don't get moved around. If you're not confident in your wicking skills, then you might want to look for something like a Griffin or something like that. One of those type of Griffin style decks that has the ring, until you turn around, until you get used to it. And then you can try going to this tank and trying this tank, because I guarantee you're going to love the flavor. It produces clouds, as you just saw, like crazy. And the flavor is very saturated. The flavor is very concentrated. And with the airflow being slightly restrictive, you're going to get yourself a mouthful of flavor that's going to last for days. Okay? That's it. I can't say anything more about this tank. Not going to give it a recommendation because the wicking is going to be fidgety. However, I will say to you, if you think you can handle it, by all means go for it. If you don't think you can handle it, then I would say wait until such time as you get your wicking skills up to snuff and you can actually do this thing without having to worry about it. Okay? Before I leave, little channel note about some scheduling I'm going to be doing here. I have a couple of more tanks that I'm going to be reviewing here in the next week or 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that. But within the next month, I'm going to start doing a series on squonkers. Okay? I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 squonkers, okay, offhand right now, that are a mod and addy combination. We're going to be taking a look at them, and we're going to see how they go. I also have a 4th addy that is, well, it's a clone. I'm not going to say it's not because this one is blatantly a clone, even though it has the company's name embossed right on the packaging that made it this thing. If you look at it, it is by all means a clone. There's no 2 ways around it. And we're going to take a look at that as well. So it's going to be like 4 shows in a row that are going to be on squonkers. Okay? And maybe a little bit more depending upon what comes in and what doesn't come in. So just want to give you a heads up so that way if you can keep an eye on the channel. If you're into squonkers or you're interested in squonkers, then by all means keep an eye on the channel and you'll see it coming up. All right? If you like what you've seen, go down there and mash the like button. If you're not subscribed to this channel already, please give me a subscribe. And I'd greatly appreciate it. Oh boy, now I'm starting to get the hiccups here. Lovely. That's about it. Until next we meet, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the Lord hold you in the hollow of his hand. And may you be in heaven a half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. Thanks for joining me today. Take care and have a great evening. Bye for now.